Today we have such a special guest that I'm excited to introduce now, Jeff Yarbrough. Jeff is one of Keller Williams' most accomplished luxury agents, and he began his career at the boutique brokerage DBL before moving to Sotheby's and ultimately making his home at Keller Williams Beverly Hills, where he leads the office #1 luxury team. He is ranked one of the absolute top agents in Keller Williams worldwide for more than 15 years, and his team have closed over 1.2 billion in sales in a single year, all while weaving philanthropy into their brand through annual charitable giving, including his support for Pug Nation LA. Known as a dynamic speaker on luxury real estate at national and international KW events, Jeff brings unmatched insight into building a thriving business, giving back, and leading at the highest level. Jeff, welcome to the chat today.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. When I'm talking, if you want to pop a question into chat, that'd be great. Just because sometimes I'll go kind of off the chair rail onto topics that I'm really interested in, and you may not. By the way, I want to correct this. We've never done 1.2 billion in sales in a single year. That's our entire office, which is comprised of, at any given time, around 500 agents. Just as an example, our team in September, you were talking about September numbers, which I think give us a little more ground beneath our feet. We closed 25 million in September for a total GCI of around $500,000. So that, and I think that was 6 sides. So that's more the cadence of our team in terms of production.
That's amazing. And so, Jeff, tell me, I got to ask you, are you a skier or snowboarder by chance?
I was, until a doctor told me if I ever get on a pair of skis again, he's not going to treat me anymore.
Oh, really? Maybe you should find a new doctor.
Maybe I should. No, I
Well,
skied
so
growing up. I was a member of ski club when I was in elementary school and also into high school. Some of my most formative years were spent in Volkswagen vans driving from Southern California to Mammoth Mountain with a bunch of kids and sleeping in cabins and bunk beds. And it was a wonderful part of my upbringing in the winter.
So are you from California?
Yes, from Central California. Yeah.
Okay, so born and raised.
Yeah.
Okay, and what did you do before you got into real estate, Jeff?
I was in a Columbia graduate in English literature and went on to work as a magazine writer and editor, mostly in the celebrity space. And around the late 90s, something happened in the world. It was called the World Wide Web. And so writers were devalued immediately. You think about it now with AI, what's happening in so many spaces of business, not just journalism or creativity spaces, but all across the board. I mean, we're using AI every single day. There's not a day now that goes by that I don't use it to do something. I mean, I was up all night helping buyers and sellers every 10 minutes closing luxury transactions. Apparently, that's what we do at Keller Williams. So, but no, I left that field because, basically, money was becoming a problem in that space dramatically. So I rolled into real estate because it was something I'd always had a passion doing and had been working with a contractor, an investor, and a couple of designers who were friends and just sort of watching them flip properties in LA. And so it was a logical transition for me. That was in
And
2002. So I'm in my 23rd year. We were looking the other day, it's my 19th year at KWBH. So the vast majority of my time has been as a KW agent, a KW luxury agent. And personally, I've closed 784 million.
it's amazing. And tell me just briefly, Jeff, when you say that you're using AI consistently in your business, what does that look like?
Well, it's kind of like having an in-house lawyer to some degree. I mean, a lot of people would find that conversation very controversial, but I find that it can take an email, it can take a point you're trying to make, it can something to add to our contracts in terms of an addendum and give you examples of language that can head a certain direction, either be stronger, more legalese, softer, more cooperative. Um, I have several voices in my head. I know that sounds strange, but I can write in several voices depending on what I want to convey. Um, I only speak in one, but I find AI makes that an easy shortcut. And in the luxury space, I'm dealing with business managers, lawyers, accountants, advocates of clients, partnerships, LLCs, you know, S corps. There's multiple people involved in one transaction. I just closed a deal for 15.5 this in the month of September, and there must have been 6 or 7 people on my side of the deal that were not agents. So everyone must be communicated with at all times. And it used to take an enormous amount of time, as you guys know, dealing with high net worth people to update them in an ongoing basis throughout the day. The days of giving a daily update are gone. It's more like an hourly update. And I don't have time for that. So I use chat as a helper.
It's great. Why KW?
Really easy answer. That's the biggest softball question people give me because I came from a boutique brokerage. I was trained and mentored in the entertainment business real estate space. So I was immediately inaugurated into kind of a team environment, if you will. It was a brokerage that was focused on one client of many faces. And so I learned the value of teamwork in real estate. I was not on a team, there were no teams, it was just all for one, one for all. Then we were sold to Sotheby's. About 25 of us signed a deal. You guys have probably heard of these deals more recently from Compass. So we were kind of packaged and bought and made deals to go to Sotheby's. And then I realized, oh, that's not what real estate's really about. It's really a very small fish tank full of very large sharks. And there was no teamwork, there was no camaraderie. It was all for one, and one was it. And so I read Gary's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and I was like, that's what I want to do. So KW was the only place at that point that had figured out how to monetize teams, how to make those work financially, both for the company, the corporate level, the franchise level, and for the team lead and the agents. So I went to KW. I partnered with a top luxury agent with the intent of building a team. That partnership didn't work out, and I ended up building my own team. And now I'm on what I call version 3 of my team building efforts, and the current one is the best I've ever done. So that's very gratifying.
And how does your team define luxury? And I'll add another question to that. How do you maintain um, that brand?
Yeah. Um, Brady and I have been close, both as I call it real estate friends, and then you have your friends, and there's two concentric circles that are just very, very slightly overlapped. You know how really close you can be to a real estate friend, but they're not really in your life. They're in your life a lot in real estate, but they're not in your personal life. Brady's somebody who both of those circles sit on top of each other. He's both in my personal life and in my professional life and has been there as long as I can remember. We were thinking about where we met and how, and neither of us, we're at a stage now where we have so much scar tissue in our brains from real estate. We can't really figure that out. I think that's lost for the ages, but it's been a very long time. And so he and I are constantly interfacing about these questions. And we agree probably 95% of the time. Um, I think the definition of luxury isn't about the client or the property, it's about the level of service you provide. And as long as you're providing luxury level service to everyone that you're working with, it doesn't matter to us. Somebody sent me an email yesterday on the team apologizing for writing a contract for $480,000, and I was like, he's one of the best agents on the team, and he's going to treat that person with white gloves and terrific service, just like he always does. But that's an example of, I think, people getting too wrapped up in the trappings of luxury. If you provide that level of service, you will attract people in all price ranges, because that's what the luxury buyer is really looking for. And defending the brand, it's the same thing. It's all about messaging and outward action. If whether it's a review on Zillow, or whether it's a client sending me an email complimenting a team member, or whether it's one of my clients referring me to 4 or 5 or 6 people over the course of our history together, I understand that the only reason that happens, it's not because I have a cool logo, because I don't. It's not because I spend an inordinate amount of time on marketing. I don't. It's about what we're putting out into the world and what's coming back to us. And that to me is where the brand becomes important. Is when someone says Jeff Yarbrough Group. Oh, do you know Jeff from Jeff Yarbrough Group? Oh, yeah, that luxury team. Well, that's a perception they have, not a perception that is 100% accurate or something that we have tried to push.
And how do you believe separate how do you believe for an average agent who maybe wants to sell luxury, maybe they've been in a mindset of helping first time home buyers, or they really haven't got into the luxury space. What do you think they need to do to differentiate themselves?
Yeah, again, I mean, it can be strategic, but it's also service oriented. I think people ask me all the time when I speak around the country, especially at the big events like family reunion. How do I become a luxury agent? And this could be, while I'm playing blackjack, they'll come up and sit down next to me. Which, please don't do that if you see me at the blackjack table. But I have enough to focus on. But people do, and I always say it's looking at who's around you, assessing who the people are that you feel that you can provide excellent service to, possibly in a different way than another realtor, and attaching yourself to the people who maybe aren't in the luxury space, but you can grow with them. I hate to say it, but if you start in this business at 60, it's like starting in this business at 20. You're not going to have a deep bench of clients to sustain the next 10 years. But if somebody does start at 20 or 25, they're going to spend the next 5 years, 7 years building with those people in their sphere, in their age group, who hopefully, some of whom are going to become top earners, and they'll just grow with them. That to me is the way to do it, is to work with people who can provide you a path to working in luxury. You can't just forge it yourself and sit in luxury open house and become a luxury agent. I don't know why I'm so blurry. Sorry about that. I didn't do that on my end.
So what I'm hearing from you is it's not necessarily just jumping right into selling or representing listings that are luxury homes
Yeah.
or those buyers. But if you have a first time home buyer and they have an upward trajectory in their career path and their vision for their own life, that first time home buyer eventually is going to buy something at a higher price point. They're going to sell their existing home and they're going to grow, especially if you're a younger agent and your sphere of influence might be a younger generation, to not dismiss those transactions or those relationships, because those are tomorrow those individuals are tomorrow's real champions perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. If you dismiss those, you'll be stuck with pretty much no trajectory. I mean, for example, that deal that I closed this month for 15.5, I picked him up 20 years ago at his apartment on a little, sort of downtrodden street in Hollywood, to go show him property. And since then, I've done 6 sides with him, and his now wife, then girlfriend. So I've grown with him, having picked him up at a rental to drive him around that day. I got him by referral. And I thought, this dude's really smart. He went to Harvard and he wrote for Saturday Night Live and he's really funny and he seems like he might know some people. So yes, there's an element of quantifying and qualifying who these people are and how you can interact with their lives, become a service professional. I always say we're one step below the hairdresser because they don't see us as often, but we must provide a great haircut every time. And if you do that, you can grow with them, but it's got to be strategic. I mean, I think you guys, where you are, have a great opportunity because there's, you saw California was the highest in luxury sales. It's also like the 5th strongest economy in the world. It belies that statistic because if it isn't the top, then we're in big trouble, But I mean, your market is so concentrated and so, layered. It's interesting because I own a house in Palm Springs as well, and that economy is similar to Vail. It's driven by the tourism. There's a very high-end clientele that comes into town during certain months of the year, and the rest of the year is service professionals. So I would think if I were in a market like that, I would kind of have a dual business plan, one for the high end and one for just the working professionals and making sure I'm servicing them as well.
Interesting. And tell me about, as you've grown, you came into KW because of the team mindset
Mhm.
and the ability to grow a business that's bigger than yourself and your own book of business. What are some of your standards that you lead by?
Gosh, is anybody on here from my team? Blake, are you here? They're probably on
I'm
mute.
here. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to answer that? You answered it the other day in terms of standards. Blake is my director of operations, by the way.
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes down to like how we're kind of communicating with the world, with like clients and other agents in the deal. Anybody that we're coming in contact with, like there's like an expectation about like the professionalism that we have.
Doesn't Blake look like he's from Colorado?
The
Um,
beard.
He actually
I am from
is.
Colorado, funny
He
enough.
is
Yeah.
from Colorado. So, yeah, it's absolutely about the outward, uh, that, keeping the standard high from within, which then presents itself in an outward capacity. And that's what people feel. I mean, there's so many stories, but the second version of team building that I did was I decided to use a name that was not specific to me because I felt like team members want ownership, right? I mean, they want to feel like it's their brand as well. And I don't have the kind of ego that's built around, oh, it has to be me, it has to be my name. So we built something called LA Lux Group. And, the agents came to me kind of halfway through when we were pretty successful, 2 or 3, 4 years in. And they're like, can we change the name to Jeff Yarbrough Group? And I was like, why? And they're like, because we have to explain what LA Lux Group is. And then we have to explain who you are and that you're the founder of it and that they should work with me as a new agent because of you, the founder of LA Lux Group. And they just felt that the the Venn diagram that they had to construct to the outside world, even in the agent to agent space, was too complex. So that was the first time in the third version of team building that we used my name. And my name is only as good as my reputation. So I have to be super careful about how I interact with the world to keep my reputation as something that they can then in turn monetize and gain value from when they're in a negotiation, perhaps, or trying to get a showing with a luxury agent who really doesn't do showings unless they know you. All HUD legal reasons aside, there's a lot of agents that are very protective of who they let in and who they don't.
Interesting. And being having this big team, a question that I just thought of. There's this popular cultural buzz term that everything's about work-life balance, and I've also heard the flip side of that coin, that when you're maniacal about being successful, that there really isn't much balance in life, that you really have to focus on a few things at a high level of degree. Do you find that you have good balance in your life?
Oh, absolutely not. Um, um, Look, just with that graphic, I saw Sarah put up that graphic in the chat. Um, it's a 24/7 business when it is, and you have to manage that yourself. I think the trick is you have to figure that out. The balance isn't consistent. You can time block it all you want, and I think you should. Like my trainer is coming in, at 9:15 to my house, 9:15 our time, because I can't go to the gym sometimes. There's too much going on. So that's an example of trying to figure out how to get a workout into the day while doing this call and then doing a listing appointment after the training session. You just have to figure it out yourself. I don't think there's anybody else that can really tell you how to give you a fulfilling, balanced life, because you are the only one that knows what that looks like in your world. You've got kids, you've got a partner, you've got stuff you have to do on the weekends. I don't know your life is a famous line from some movie that I'm sure Blake knows, but I don't. But I've heard that line before, and I never try to tell somebody how to do that or what to do. I do
Yeah.
think though, if you're young, if you are 25 to 35, you shouldn't be trying to balance your life. You should be trying to build your success. That's all you should be doing. Enjoy your life. Have a great time. Party, go to the movies, go to sporting events, travel, but just focus on that, on building your success. Because by the time you get to 35 or 40, if you have not done it by then, it's over. So you're just going to be the average producer from then on for the rest of your life. You'll fall into one or two whales, but there's going to be no consistency. So if you don't take a hold of it during that decade, forget it. And the best thing to do is attach yourself to someone like me or one of my compatriots who run a great team, and learn from them and take what you can from them. Just suck them as dry as you can. Provide a lot of value for them so they see you in a sea of 15 or 20 people and start to pour into you. If you don't do that, again, it's up to you. It's just levels of what do you want, really.
Right. And I know my personal experience throughout my life, and other agents that I'm close with have also come to a truth as I've gotten older in my mid 40s. It's nice making money, but it never feels as good making money than it does to give it away. It's much more rewarding as I've gotten progressed in my career throughout life, to be of service and to have a service mindset, but also to give back. How do you and your team give back?
Yeah, I was we're a member of, we're partnered with Place, which is Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez's back end support and technology company. And, Ben talks a lot about giving back, a lot about balance. On the operator call yesterday, which we sit for an hour and talk as the operators of 300 some teams around the country and the world, we were talking about exactly this. Like, some people had not identified that. And I find that really fascinating. There's nothing wrong about that. In fact, it's kind of exciting that they realize that uh, they haven't figured that out yet. Either that charitable aspect, that giving back to their community. Look, I think it's kind of, it's a no-brainer in real estate. We are in a business that is about a fundamental, primal scenario, which is shelter. The cave people needed a cave to get away from the saber tooth. And essentially, I see that in almost every deal I do. Whether it's a rich person, a rock star, a movie actor, they can become unhinged in a deal because I think their primal brain starts to take over, because it's about protection, it's about solitude, it's about rest, it's about enjoyment and thriving when they are in that home. So I think it flips a switch, and it's why I say a real estate deal in the high end can bring out the worst or the best in people. And I think that's why. So I always think about that. So if our business is about shelter, then we should be also, we're taking money for that. We're making sometimes six-figure commissions because of doing that, getting people into homes. So I think our focus should be something around housing or the unhoused or something along those lines to kind of form an interesting balance in our world, in our micro world, not the world, but in our world of being agents. And I'm not saying you can't volunteer at a hospital and that's your passion, do it. But if somebody's trying to figure it out, like that's why I'm involved in animal rescue, because they need homes too. I've said that a million times that, I work all day trying to find people homes. And then what really gives me a sense of fulfillment is either just giving money from every closing to an animal rescue or actually getting out there in the trenches and, shoveling in the stalls,
Yeah.
So that's up to everybody. And I leave it up to my team. I never believe in telling people what to do. Like today, we're going to go hand out flyers about a rescue opportunity at a pet store. That it's up to them, because to me, that's so personal and so passion driven that I just lead in that case by example. Like I do it, you can do it, or you cannot do it. I think it depends on the person and where they're at.
That's amazing. And in the sake of time, everyone, I just want to open it up. Does anyone in our call today at the lift have any questions for Jeff? Anything we didn't cover that you'd like to know?
I did my job.
Well, I'll ask you,
I have a question.
Jeff, this is something that off script a little bit. Either business and life, your choice, or both. What is the greatest lesson you've learned?
Business or life.
Or a few great lessons you've learned?
Well, one thing I always think about is, and this has nothing to do with current technology, but I'm always fascinated that how, if you're at all sort of known in a community, that you're being watched. Like everything you do is being clocked by somebody. And having worked with because I'm not a famous person, I'm not a TV broker. I was on Selling LA for a season, but that was many years ago. You can find it on YouTube. But now I'm much too old to be monetized by Bravo, so you won't see me on there. But I'm just talking about being a part of a community of sort of in the entertainment field where everybody's being looked at, and so I'm careful. And I think it is a lesson that if you do anything out of character, that can start to define you. There was an example of this recently in our tight little gossipy Beverly Hills city limit real estate scene where somebody taped a phone conversation that somebody was having in the office. They weren't they just had their phone and they were recording the audio. And this poor guy who I know had kind of lost his mind, and he was screaming at a staff member in the brokerage on his phone. And he was fired later that day for, I believe, the fourth time for doing this, from three other brokerages. And he's now at a fifth brokerage. So he's got some life lessons to learn. But what he's not recognized is people believe what you do and what they see, not maybe who's inside of you. So I believe as an agent, we always have to be representing the best of ourselves. And I think that leaks over into private life too. You know, I think we have to be out there trying to be kind. Someone mentioned the word kind earlier and it kind of hit me. I just got on the call. I don't know who you were, ma'am, but you were talking about someone that you encouraged to join your brokerage, and you were like, she's really kind. And I was like, wow, God, that word has so much power. You know, just that word defined her to me. I knew her. Oh wow, she's that cool person that like helps other people. You know, people look up to her. She's, you know, it's interesting. So to me, the life lesson is kind of, you know, find that authentic self that serves the community you live in and also serves you in the place in which you make your living.
And Allie, you have a question. One more question for the sake of time.
Okay. First of all, thank you for being here, Jeff. It's been great.
Sure.
My question is actually pretty generic. I changed it while you were talking. I wanted to know, how do you define hope for you as a person and in this
There you
industry?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because our industry is so filled with ups and downs and arounds that you know, I think where it's funny you asked me to define it. It's hard to define it, but I think I can tell you where I think it lives and where it can be found are in those moments where you accomplish what that client wants to accomplish. And that always makes me hopeful for the next deal and the next deal and the next deal is when I see them maybe tear up, you know, when you hand them the key, or just get so excited that the deal is done and they got what they want, and now it's time to sell my house. You know, I think it's the excitement of what we do, and again, I think that goes back to what we do is so fundamental and so base. You know, you talked about base camp, which I loved. All your terms were ski terms, so at least I felt I knew what you were talking about, having skied a lot as a kid. But I think at the base, at the core of it all, I think what we do is super important. I think people undervalue and overlook the processes that we are walking people through. Um, it's not easy. It's not easy all the way up and down the food chain for them, and that's why I think being a luxury agent is actually simply understanding, respecting how difficult that process is, and providing support and knowledge and direction and advice to them through that transaction.
That's great.
Thank you.
Well,
Sure.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for another great week of the lift. And we so appreciate your contribution today. And we will all see you next week, same time, same place.
Thank you, guys.